love their furry friends. Scientifically developed, pup approved. The content is solely designed to appeal to man's best friend. Let your dog sit around TV and be stimulated and entertained by the exciting movements and objects. Or simply chill them out with soothing sounds and images. Just sit back and enjoy the fun of watching TV with your pooches. Dog TV, Saturday and Sunday nights at 8 on ViuTVSix. Provocative stories that have changed lives. Insightful interviews with notable figures from the worlds of news, politics, and entertainment. ViuTV6 brings you one of the most esteemed news magazines, ABC News 2020. Sunday night at 9:30 on ViuTV6.
Hi there and good evening to you. I'm Patrick Falk in Hong Kong. You're watching ViuTV News. Coming up on tonight's show. Carrie's cabinet. Less than 2 weeks before taking office, the incoming chief executive finally names her team. Letting the money do the talk, Hong Kong's biggest billionaire, Li Ka-shing, refuses to rule out retiring next year. And moments from terror in Brussels. Belgian police shoot suspected attacker with explosives trapped to his chest. Okay, to our top story first, though. And after expressing worries that she would fail to form a team, Chief Executive-elect Carrie Lam finally announced her new cabinet today. As expected, there were a few surprises, but even with bipartisan agreement on most appointments, the new administration could yet court controversy. Evelina Leung has more.
A brand new government, but many familiar faces, all approved by Beijing. Carrie Lam's new cabinet sees many incumbents return, including the 3 top ministers. Chief Secretary Matthew Cheung, Financial Secretary Paul Chan, and Secretary for Justice Rimsky-Yuen are all staying on. The only outsider joining Lam's new administration is Democratic Party member Law Chi-kwong, who will serve as the Labour and Welfare Chief. Lam is fielding criticism for failing to inject new blood into the government, especially in the financial sector, and currently only featuring one other woman on the team.
Though some will say that my governing team consists of familiar faces, I wish to say that they all agree with my new style of governance and support the idea that the government should play more active roles.
Lawmakers on both sides have also backed the new administration.
Of course, Mr. Law has a lot of good relationship with, Pan-Democrats Alliance, and that will help in terms of the communications.
They may have different views, but once the team is formed, I'm sure they will work together and work towards a general agreed direction.
Well, there is another controversy brewing, though, over the relatively minor post of Undersecretary for Education. Christine Choi is tipped for the position. She is the vice chairwoman of the Hong Kong Federation of Education Workers, a pro-Beijing group. If she gets the job, some have suggested that it could represent political interference. Evelina Leung, ViuTV News.
Now, Li Ka-shing has refused to deny reports that he's planning on retiring next year. The billionaire tycoon was asked about reports he would step down as chairman of CK Hutchison Holdings before his 90th birthday in July 2018. Whilst he emphasised that he still felt healthy, he was also keen to point out that his son Victor Li's succession would ensure stability at the firm.
I have confidence in both my sons. I will definitely make an announcement after I decide on my retirement timetable. If I retired, there won't be any changes. I will still go to work at the same office, in the same building. I will remain as senior advisor of the group.
Staying on local news, and a big scare for residents living in a 60-year-old building in Hung Hom as parts of it collapsed after heavy rain. Luckily, no one was injured. Part of a second-floor unit crumbled at around 2 a.m. when an amber rainstorm warning was in place. Firefighters were deployed to the scene at Gillis Avenue South. The accident forced around 20 residents to evacuate from their apartments. A senior surveyor from the building department said the collapse could be partly due to a lack of repair, but added they were confident the building would be safe from now on. Well, we have had pretty bad rainy weather lately. Anyway, news elsewhere. Belgian counter-terrorism police are probing the identity of a suspected suicide bomber shot dead by troops guarding Brussels Central Station. Officials say there were no other casualties, although a small explosion was reported before the suspect was shot, sending evening commuters racing for cover. Jonah Green reports.
A tense situation in Brussels Tuesday, police responding to a small explosion at Brussels Central Station. A spokesman for the police saying troops neutralized the suspected suicide bomber, adding that there were no other casualties and the situation was under control. Amid conflicting accounts of what happened, it was still unclear if the man had died. Witnesses telling Belgian media the busy station and adjacent historic downtown were partly evacuated as police secured the area. The city has been on high alert for more than 18 months since Brussels-based Islamic State militants carried out attacks in Paris that killed 130 people in November 2015 and later bombed Brussels airport and the city's metro in March last year.
South Korea has confirmed that a drone it found near the demilitarized zone border is from North Korea, calling it a grave provocation. The unmanned aerial vehicle crashed when it tried to return to the north. Camera equipment and aerial photographs of a U.S. anti-missile defense system in the south were found on board, according to officials. It's not the first time that North Korea is known to have used drones to spy on its neighbor. It comes as South Korea's president said he hopes for talks with Pyongyang by the end of next year.
So I believe what Kim Jong-un would want the most is to have a security guarantee for his regime. So there is a possibility that Kim Jong-un continues to make the bluff with his nuclear weapons programs, but deep inside he is actually yearning or wanting dialogue. But in the end, the only way to find out is to have a dialogue with North Korea.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump says that China's failed to help the U.S. in its efforts to curb the nuclear and missile programs of North Korea. President Trump publicly expressed hope for more cooperation between Washington and Beijing, especially with regard to the unpredictable behavior of North Korea and its leader Kim Jong-un. Trump sent out a tweet overnight in which he said, "While I greatly appreciate the efforts of President Xi and China to help with North Korea, it hasn't worked out. At least I know China tried." The death of American student Otto Warmbier has seen U.S. rhetoric on China's diplomatic role become more critical.
It's a total disgrace what happened to Otto. That should never, ever be allowed to happen. And frankly, if he were brought home sooner, I think the result would have been a lot different. He should have been brought home that same day.
Meanwhile, Otto Warmbier's family has said they won't go ahead with a full autopsy. A coroner in Ohio performed an external examination only, meaning the full reasons behind the American student's death might never be known. Warmbier was released by North Korea last week in a coma 17 months after being sentenced to hard labor in Pyongyang for trying to steal a propaganda poster. While elsewhere in the U.S., the special prosecutor investigating links between Russia and the Trump campaign has met with members of the House Intelligence Committee. Special counsel Robert Mueller was seen leaving Capitol Hill after meeting with Representatives Adam Schiff and Mike Conway. Former FBI Director Mueller will also talk with members of the Senate Judiciary Committee to make sure its own probe is not compromised. White House spokesman Sean Spicer, meanwhile, said he hadn't spoken to Trump about the investigation yet.
Just very plainly, a yes or no answer. Does President Trump believe that the Russian government interfered in the 2016 elections?
I think I have not sat down and talked to him about that specific thing. Obviously, we've been dealing with a lot of other issues today. I'd be glad to touch base.
Generally speaking, I mean, this conversation about Russian interference in our elections, there's 16 intelligence agencies that say that they did. The former FBI director said that without a doubt the Russians interfered.
I understand. I've seen the reports.
Does the president share those views?
I've not sat down and asked him about his specific reaction to him, so I'd be glad to touch base and get back to you. Yeah.
Now, the Republican candidate in Georgia's congressional election has won a tight contest in what was widely interpreted as a referendum on Trump's presidency. In one of the first U.S. elections since Trump won November's vote, Karen Handel successfully fended off her Democratic opponent. The district has been Republican since the 1970s. The election was one of the most expensive in modern history, with total spending at $57 million. The vote comes as Senate Republicans are expected to reveal their latest plans for American healthcare.
Who's next in line?
Up next, the latest from the world of business. Okay, well, the move was widely expected, but index provider MSCI's decision to add domestic Chinese stocks to its emerging markets benchmark is a symbolic victory for the Chinese government. The company had been in discussions with mainland regulators for nearly 4 years on whether to add so-called A shares to the index. They'd already been rejected 3 times, but in March, MSCI relaxed rules to address curbs on moving capital from China. It now plans to include the 222 stocks in provisional indexes from August. Some analysts say it could help draw more than $400 billion worth of funds into mainland equity markets over the next decade. Well, investors in Hong Kong didn't react well to MSCI's move. Fears are the inclusion of Chinese stocks will threaten the SAR's role as a gateway to China. The HSI ended down around 0.6% to close at 25,694 points. Most sectors lost ground, with financial and property picks leading the declines. The China Enterprise Index, which is a popular channel for global investors to bet on China plays, shed 0.7%. Meantime, renewed slump in oil prices put investors on edge despite OPEC's efforts to cut global inventories. Oil traded around multi-month lows on Wednesday. Market players appear unconvinced by OPEC and non-OPEC oil producers' strict compliance of a deal to shore up global output. They'd agreed in January to slash production for 6 months by 1.8 million barrels per day. But part of the problem, according to research firm BMI, was a number of producers ramped up output in the run-up to the deal, making it difficult to actually reduce stockpiles. Well, one company banking on oil prices staying low is automaker Ford. It's planning to take advantage of lower shipping costs and has announced it will export the next generation Ford Focus from China to North America in 2019 instead of Mexico. But a cut in the cost of crude isn't the only reason, as Fred Kareyama reports.
Ford Motor will ship its next-generation Focus compact from China to the U.S. instead of from Mexico. The company said the move will save it $500 million. In January, Ford killed plans to build a Focus plant in San Luis Potosi, Mexico, after President Donald Trump criticized it for shipping small car production south of the border. Ford said then it would instead make the new Focus at an existing plant in Hermosillo. Jeff Tomasula of Vespula Capital.
I think it's a little bit placating the Trump administration. It seems it's very interesting to say that they're going to save money doing it from China than Mexico, considering the distance of being able to ship those cars.
Ford said it's cheaper to build and